everyone here. I can see some familiar faces, so hello. But again, like, it's just literally opening it up and having the questions that I've set. But also, I want to stress, like, for you lot to ask as many questions as possible, just so that you can like get the most out of it from this opportunity and from this experience. So yeah, again, David from London. I host events, but also advocate through design, architecture, and run my own think tank, which is super cool. But yeah, I guess it's more important to kind of find out a bit more about these speakers. So I would like to just ask a group question for all the speakers, actually, just to introduce who they are and what they do and how they cope during this time through COVID. So if Johnny Manning wants to go first and just like roll through to the rest of the team.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So my name is Johnny Manning. I'm the founder and managing director of Manning's Tutors Limited. We're a tuition agency that takes university undergrads, takes them on as tutors in all disciplines, and then supplies them to schools and academies across London. So primarily working with GCSE and A-level kids. Very small gap in age between the pupil and the tutor, so someone they can relate to, see as a role model. And in terms of coping with coronavirus, we did take a rather large hit when the schools closed and the exams got cancelled, but we fortunately had already developed an online learning capability, and we've sort of been pivoting as many of our lessons to distance learning through this online platform as possible. I'll hand over to the next person.
There seems to be a little bit of silence. Okay, Johnny, I think it's better to popcorn it and pick someone rather than wait for someone to respond. So Johnny, you can pick someone.
Sure, I'll hand across to James in that case.
Yeah, good morning. My name's James Tolbert, and I'm more of a resting entrepreneur. I've had a number of businesses in a number of sectors over the years, and now I'm spending more time working as a business coach with a number of different companies in as varied as restaurant design, which is doing rather better than I was expecting it to do, through to light engineering and all sorts of different sectors in between. The COVID question, very much mixed. Some are doing really badly, and some are really rushed off their feet. There is some opportunity out there for the nimble people, and I'm finding it a very interesting and exciting time, and have changed my business consulting more from growth to managing crisis. Thankfully, I've had a few in my day, and so I've got a few tips and tricks there for managing the various different areas. So that's me. How about you, Christine?
Hi, thanks, James. So my name's Christine Nicholson. I'm a co-founder of a company called Succession Plus UK, and we specialise in succession and exit planning for businesses. Typically, my clients will be 2 to 50 million turnover businesses where the business owner is over 50. Which belies my background, because I have got a 3-decade experience in basic crisis management. I'm an accountant with a law degree, but frankly, that's just a bucket load of information, education. And the real value is the fact that I've been up to my knees, actually, I've been up to about here in crisis in various businesses. And that taught me everything I needed to know to start my own businesses up. And it's never gone smoothly. COVID crisis has hit me in the same way as James. Some of my clients are absolutely thriving. Some of my clients have got businesses that are really struggling. One lady has closed her business and founded a completely new business just because of COVID. So there are plenty of opportunities out there. I think it's time for being very honest about where you are with your business, and actually looking at the opportunities for you to perhaps go in the direction. I will always say one thing: follow 2 things, your passion and the money. your passion first, but make sure you follow the money. And who's not been? Let's go for David. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. So my name's David Barker. My background is I was one of the UK's first internet entrepreneurs in the early 90s, co-founding one of the first digital marketing agencies. Spent 10 years growing that business, working for clients like Intel, Microsoft, Cisco on globalizing the internet. Exited that business 2004, became a social entrepreneur. So how do we use business thinking, entrepreneurial skills and business models to tackle issues in society? Today, I've innovated 5 different social enterprises, ranging from pop-up training programs to train unemployed youth into work, to an app called Placer, which is helping students get work experience during university. So, yeah, so I've been innovating social enterprises. COVID, I think crisis is never planned, but we should always expect it, I think, whatever we're doing. So I'm drawing on the experience of the Great Recession of 2008, because actually many of us went through that, took a year, came out the other side. So yeah, I'm just taking on board some of the learnings from 2008, applying that to surviving COVID. I'm also launching a new service. So I've been innovating new social enterprises, launching a new service to help funders and investors match with business owners, especially on the social enterprise side. So yeah, so in a time like this, you know, yes, we have to manage what we're doing, but we should also look at some new services that we can start to offer. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs looking to raise funding, and I know a lot of funders. So can I help bring some of those together is something I'm looking at now as well.
Well, thank you. It's actually quite interesting that you ended, David, because I actually wanted to ask you somewhat a following question. It was just that as a social entrepreneur during this period of lockdown, what has been what has kind of like directed your focus? Like, are you working on anything just because of this lockdown? Like anything that kind of like abrupted or rose from this period?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, I think on a personal level, when anything like this happens, it is important we're not just focusing on our own business, our own thing, but, you know, what can we volunteer? Because people are volunteering to help other people. So one thing I've looked to do is what can I volunteer? So, for example, I'm an innovator, so I was working with the council on helping to find a solution to help disadvantaged students at home from school without a connected device. So I was helping find, and again, just pro bono support on that. Helping to see where we can get more people from industry who may be furloughed to give remote talks to students at home. So again, so yeah, I'm trying to get involved with volunteering through this time. From a business perspective, yeah, one of my social enterprises was just about to sign the next round of funding in March. That's now been delayed a few months. It will happen, but it's been delayed. So again, we just got to work with the funders, keep the businesses going, keep growing with the resources we have, but make sure when we have spare capacity that we're donating time to help other people. And yeah, let's go full circle on this. So yeah, let's focus on what we're doing. Let's find ways through. Like I say, I've got a new service coming online, matching investors with entrepreneurs, but also let's make sure we're volunteering, supporting others. And through all that, we'll all get through COVID-19 in a good way.
Thank you for that. I guess, again, it's quite interesting because part of me is wondering that, yes, this is affecting people in different ways. And some people have like one source of income. And again, it kind of segues to James, because it's like, how do you diversify your portfolio and manage like multiple businesses? Lockdown has made some people with one business completely unemployed right now. So for you to manage multiple portfolios, would you advise that? Do you think that is like the best way forward in this current climate? And how have you done it?
Sorry, is that for me, David?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very difficult one, because in lockdown there is the, okay, well, we have our experience and we are specialists. Do we consolidate to what our strengths are and to try and make that work? or do we pivot and look for something else? So naturally, most of my clients have gone back to where their strengths are and tried to see what they can do to sort out that problem. We're now a month, 6 weeks later, exploring other options for them. But it really is very key that you've got a strong team to be able to keep the old business running, as opposed to dumping that and then moving on. It depends very much on where you are in which sector you're in, and what your strengths are. But the important thing is to see if you can broaden your income from your strong base. So that might not be totally changing, but it may be, for instance, I was working with a photographer, and a lot of his work has totally disappeared, but he's also got a couple of online books. He's now busy pushing those. He's pushing his YouTube channel and making those work, but they're based on his photographic skills rather than starting in a totally new area. I'm very interested to hear more about Christine and her client who has closed one business and started another, but perhaps that's for a different time. I think it really is important to remember that diversity is not necessarily a strength in a business unless you've got a strong underlying parts to that. If you are trying to spread your skills, particularly at an early stage, too thin, without the team to support you, that can spell disaster. But yes, it's the sort of thing that is very situation dependent. But essentially, if you're managing a number of businesses, you want to have good governance, you want to have regular membership or meetings with the stakeholders there, you want to have good reports, and you want to be making sure that everyone is on board and that the teams that you're not directly managing are working strongly, and that the business that you've left is not going downhill because it's not getting your attention.
Thank you for that. Thank you, James. Again, like, part of me is wondering, like, from the young businesses and like adversity that you have faced, not just you, James, but Christine, like, what kind of things can you share with young businesses right now? Like, what are the key insights to withstand adversity and make profit during this time? What would you say are those key things, Christine?
Okay, so I thought long, and thanks for providing the question in advance, because I thought long and hard about this, because it's really, it's quite difficult to condense this into a few minutes. So my 5 things. The first one, head and shoulders above everything else, is look after yourself. You cannot operate and run a team or a business if you're not actually looking after yourself first. And it's your first responsibility. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first and make sure that you are okay, so that you've got all the energy to put into thinking about your business. And don't panic, which is a subsector of that first one. So look after yourself and don't panic, because this will all pass. The second thing is, make sure you've got the right business model, because if you've got the wrong business model, no matter what you do, you're not going to make a profit. You might appear to be making a profit because you've got more cash, you've got cash in the bank. But if you really don't have the right business model, making sure that you know your numbers, that you've got the right gross profit margin, and that you can cover your overhead, so that you know what your break even is. I know most people run scared because of the numbers, but even just having a basic understanding is worth investing in the time. And if you are talking to an accountant and you don't understand them, then you're talking to the wrong accountant. Talk to someone who can make sure that you understand, and don't stop asking questions until you wholly understand your numbers. the thing is with business is there's really only 3 things that you have to do in a business, and that's in reverse order. You have to keep legal. Please don't avoid that. Don't stick your head in the sand and not do the stuff that you absolutely have to because you don't like it. Do that stuff first, or get someone else to do it. You have to do stuff that creates greater efficiency, because that's going to always improve your business. But your number one thing, your task every day, is to get and keep your customers. So figure out what it is that gets you customers and keeps you customers. Because if you've got the right business model, then actually the only challenge you've really got is getting those customers in. Now, when I'm talking about getting customers in, I'm talking about really understanding what your business, what your customers value, and that is not necessarily what you're selling them. So value is what your customer is receiving. Service is what you're giving, whether it's a product or a product or a physical service. What you're selling is not what your customer is buying. So you need to put yourself in your customer's shoes. And if you don't understand what your customer really values, go and ask them. Because no customer is going to be dissatisfied by you asking them what it is that they like about what you're offering. And it may be that when you ask them about what they really value, it could be that what you're offering as a service might not be actually quite right for them, and you can adapt your service that might end up with you generating more revenue and actually maybe even a better profit margin. So many people make the mistake of assuming what the customer wants. So few people ask. If you ask your customer what they want, they will be delighted. And then the final one, which is a bit, this is particularly for young customers, and I've fallen foul of this myself. But when you first get started, you're really tempted to go and buy what I call swag. And swag is anything that isn't useful to your business, anything that isn't adding to your efficiency, keeping you legal, or getting and keeping customers. So don't buy swag. Just don't waste your money on it. Spend your money on the most important things. If you gave me £100,000 and asked me to go and spend it on a whole load of branded products or marketing to get new customers, put it in their marketing, because you only have 3 jobs, and number 1 of those is getting and keeping customers. Getting customers is really, really hard. So all of those apply, whether there's COVID or not COVID, and it's the advice I would give to any startup. In fact, it's the advice I give to any customer at all when I first meet them, because these are the things that will really drive you for the future. I hope that's helped.
Awesome, thank you. And I guess lastly, just to Johnny, it was like, how have you positioned your service as more appealing in comparison to other businesses and services?
Sure, yeah, thanks for the question. Before I answer that, I do want to just agree with Christine's first point, which is looking after yourself. And that is both during COVID, but also when you start a business, there's this huge temptation to work like a madman or a madwoman and burn yourself into the ground. And that will only last for, a short period of time. You actually need to make sure that you set an amount of effort that you can sustain over the long run. So the first thing, my wife runs a business, a bookshop, which I'm in right now. My wife and I did when COVID came was to reassess our situation and to figure out exactly how much time we had to work. We'd lost childcare, and we came up with the figure of 25 hours each. And so that is all I put into the business at this present time. And that then leaves time for me to still do my sport, my music, and time for us to spend as a family. So setting those boundaries and sticking within them is going to mean you're going to have the sustained effort over the long period that you need for running a business. So yeah, glad to hear someone else thinking that same way. But in response to the question of how we've positioned ourselves as more appealing, I think what I did first and foremost when coronavirus kicked in was get on the phone to the headmasters at all the schools that we provide tutors for. Kind of just for a chat and just to understand what their pressures were going to be in this time and what their pain points were, and see if there's any way we could relieve those. I think what we generally try and do is to make a teacher's or a headmaster's life as stress-free as possible. Probably following on from what Christine said, that that's the value they see in us is that stress relief. whereas the service we're providing is tuition. And what we found was they were very worried about these pupils that were at home without computers, without internet access, that weren't going to be able to receive tuition either from the school or from us. And we heard that from one school, from another school, from another school, and figured that it would be incredibly easy for us to put in a large order of laptops and dongles for all the schools we work with, with a few hours work from my staff, and take that pressure, that admin away from the schools. And that workload that was going to be replicated a number of times across a number of different academies, take that pressure, take that stress away, get the computers, get the dongles to these pupils, and then the tuition could take place. And that meant that the tuition could go both to the pupils who had all those in place and who didn't. And the government kind of followed our plan about 3 weeks after we'd already put it in place, because they've started providing laptops and dongles as well, but we've actually done it for all year groups, whereas they're only doing it for the year 10s and 12s. So yeah, understanding your customers' pain points and responding to those. And like Christine said, speaking to them to find out what they are rather than assuming you know for yourself.
Thank you. Again, like, just from the conversations that we've had, and like as I mentioned before, just being able to kind of provide those kind of like underlying questions, but really wanting to open it up to everyone else to ask some questions. So a question from me basically would be like starting out, like, what was your biggest challenge and how did you maneuver through it? So that's kind of an open question to the panel. But now I just kind of opening up to everyone else. So you can literally just put any questions that you have in the chat, or just like unmute yourself. I might pick someone out like Sam to like ask a question too after me. But for me right now, what was your biggest challenge starting out and how did you maneuver through it? Is that David with a hand up? Okay, cool.
Yeah, just when we co-founded one of the first digital marketing agencies about 26 years ago, we left our jobs, the security of employment to do this, and we had no clients, no income. We had a little bit of money that we managed to get from the Prince's Trust, gave us £5,000 to start that business. And that's the key. I think as a small business, you maybe think about creating, make sure you look for those grants like the Prince's Trust. 5K got us going. And then it's about networking. It's not about advertising, marketing. It's about networking at relevant events. And we did that. It took a month or two, and then we got a break. We met somebody from Microsoft. He thought, yeah, you guys know what you're talking about. We were credible. And he gave us a £15,000 contract. We delivered it. We over-delivered. We gave him something that blew his mind, and then he told his mate at Intel, and then we started working for Intel. And very quickly, over the next 10 years, became one of the top 10 digital marketing agencies. But it wouldn't have happened if we didn't leave our jobs, took that risk. But I can't overstress the need to network, whether it's virtual or physical. I think for me personally, that's always been the way to generate a lot of businesses, personal relationships, networking.
Oh, anyone else? Do you want to popcorn that to someone else, David? Oh, Christine's hand up.
Sorry, just couldn't find the mute button. So I've started several businesses over the years. I started my first business when I was 10, and my main barrier was my age and the fact that even as a 10-year-old, I looked like a 6-year-old. But what drove me was the fact that I needed to earn some money. And, I come from an extremely poor family, and necessity drove the fact that if I wanted certain things and my brothers and sisters wanted certain things, we had to generate income. And I started a hand knitting company without realizing that that's what I was doing. I had no idea I was starting a business. I just knew that I was earning money, and I didn't realize I was employing these women and facilitating them increasing their earnings. I was totally focused on how I could bring in and leverage money. Never knew and never understood those words at all. But roll forward 25 years, when I started about my third or fourth business, the biggest barrier by then was believing that I could do it, even though I'd already done it. Because as you get older, or depending on the circles you mix in, you'll always find people who are willing to knock you. They'll go, oh, people like you don't do that. They might not say it in those exact words. If they're incredibly rude, they'll say it in those exact words. But I think the biggest barrier for most people, and certainly it has been for me, except when I was too young to realize what I was doing, is actually getting over that belief. So in the same way that, David, it's a parallel to David, stepping out of the job and into that unknown. It's like stepping out of an aircraft, not knowing whether you've got a parachute attached to yourself. And then you realize your belief is your parachute. Because what's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst thing that can happen is, you get so far, it doesn't work, bad timing, bad product, and just things don't work. Go back and get a job. Now, most people, that is so abhorrent that they will find a way of making it work. And when you start, don't get so tied to your original idea, because the biggest barrier is going to be your thinking. If you have very blinkered thinking, you might actually miss an opportunity just by talking to potential clients and finding out what they want. So the biggest barrier really for me has always been that self-belief. And if you just get over yourself, we can all do anything. But I will also parallel the thing that David said, which is, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you and how they know you. The way that you behave towards absolutely everyone will be the way that you attract people back to you. So this whole concept of giving, it's a really good concept, because you never know who you're talking to and who they might know and who they might talk to, that will actually say, that person was a really good person, therefore, and I really liked them, therefore they're going to be in my mind, and if I meet someone that I think, oh, that's a connection, that most of my businesses have happened as a result of quite bizarre connections.
Thank you. We've got some questions in the chat. Some Bushra. Yeah. And so it was like, how do you deal with your parents being the barrier to you starting your business, especially as a teenager? Who would like to? Oh, Johnny.
I'd actually like to ask Bushra in what way his parents are hindering him at the moment, he feels.
As in, like, not believing in you as a person, like saying, oh, like, if I give you this money, if I grant you this money, you're gonna waste it, or it's gonna go like down the drain.
Sure. So one, I mean, if it's a case you're looking for financial investment from them, then treat them like any other investor and put together a convincing business plan, cash flow forecast, how you're going to use that money, and what returns you're going to get for it, and just generally try and prove them wrong. I certainly I did a maths degree at Imperial and set the business up that I'm running now 2 days after my last exam, and I think, having studied for a maths degree, the expectation from my family was I was going to be moving into the city and earning, mega bucks in there, which wasn't a life that I wanted for myself. And this sort of, complete unknown of setting up my own business and trying to grow that kind of threw a curveball at them, I think. But get a few years down the line with a successful business that's, churning a regular profit, they'll look back and feel foolish for not believing you in the first place. But if you're asking for money for them, treat them like any other investor and convince them. And if you've put together a convincing business plan and cash flow forecast and they don't give you the money, then at least you've got something that you can take to a different investor.
Thank you.
Cool. Was there anyone else who wanted to touch on that before we answer another question?
Yeah, just very briefly, my father didn't believe in education for women. I'm one of 5. There's only one boy, so we had quite a lot to prove as girls. We had quite a lot to prove, and I totally agree with Johnny. It is about, if you're taking money off them, treat them as an investor, because actually it's a discipline for you to treat them and as any investor would. And the second thing is then you prove them wrong by the way that you show up. And even if your business fails, and do not be afraid of failure. Don't let the fear of failure be cause you to have any kind of paralysis. Just get on with it. We all learn through our failures. I don't think there's anybody on this panel who hasn't failed in at least one thing. But don't let the fear of failure paralyze you, but do show up as if you are going to succeed, and have the work ethic. Show them in your everyday actions that you mean business, and that eventually you'll wear them down.
Yeah, if I can just butt in too. Also, if you think you need the money, can you look, as Christine was suggesting, at your business model? There are many ways of starting things small where you don't need much cash, whether that's selling some consultancy in an area that you want to do more, or whether there's just so much affiliate marketing or printing on demand. There are so many different business models now that can start you going and show your parents that you're actually making a go of it. That might be another thing to have a look at.
Cool. We're just going to move on because I'm getting some more questions, but that is, yeah, for sure. I hope that really helped. Tavik, I hope I'm saying that right. So how important is it to have a good business plan at the start of your business? Oh, Christine, yeah, we could probably get like a short one in there.
Yeah, look, it is really important to have a good business plan, but it's what's your definition of good? A good business plan is not one that's this thick. It's a business plan that shows you exactly what actions you're going to take and what outcomes you're going to achieve, what cash you're going to generate, and how you're going to spend the money that you're investing. Look, I've personally invested tens of thousands of pounds in businesses that have had great big thick business plans, gone out to a multitude of investors and have failed miserably. I've then invested the best part of £1 million in a one-page business plan and actually multiplied my money. So the business plan is important, but it's make sure that you don't get caught up with good being this thick. And it's about the quality of the information in the business plan. And it depends what you're using your business plan for. Because if it's for you to use daily to drive your strategy so that you can benchmark where you are against your plan, fantastic. If it's an academic exercise, don't waste your breath. This is not, a business plan is not an academic document. And it's something that should be driving your business and enabling you to measure yourself against, or and it can be used for going for investment or maybe borrowing from the bank. But a business plan should be an active, organic, constantly changing document that you're using to drive your business forward, not something that you do as a one-off exercise and stick it in a drawer.
Cool. Again, getting some more questions in. Oh, is that Johnny?
I was going to very quickly agree with Christine that boiling it down to a very simple one-page business plan is a really good exercise, and it's something that you can then very easily revisit on a regular basis, being it quarterly or annually possibly, or possibly even monthly, and just say, am I doing what I said I would be doing? Or potentially, if provided you're not being blinkered, do I need to revise my business plan because I've seen new opportunities that use my strengths? But yeah, keeping it as simple and as short as possible, I think has huge merit.
Awesome. We got a little message, or not a little message, actually a longer message from Fahad. It's just like, so he was mentioned that he's currently working on a digital marketing business. I guess this might be tailored a bit to David, but he's working on a digital marketing business right now, having just started off as because his A-levels has just been cancelled. So how do you think he should try to get his first clients, and as he finds it the hardest part of the process? So how, I guess rephrasing that, how would you get your first clients having just started a digital marketing business due to the A-levels being cancelled?
No, it's great to hear someone's setting up a digital marketing agency. I think for me, first of all, be honest to yourself about what experience do you have right now in digital marketing. Get a mentor, someone you can talk to, assess really where you're at. For me, when I set up my first digital marketing agency, I knew I couldn't have done that straight out of school. And that's why I worked for somebody for a few years and really honed the craft to give me that confidence to create a real business. So I say, get a mentor, really understand where you're at. And also differentiate between what you can do. So you could be self-employed first, supplying that service to an established digital marketing business, again, to hone your craft before growing a business itself. So yeah, really understand where you're at, different opportunities to be self-employed for a while, working for agencies, really build your credibility and knowledge and expertise before spinning into a business. If you are ready now, make sure you've got mentors, people that can support you on that. And as I said before, it's about networking at relevant events. And as Christine said, it's not how can I meet as many people, but it's about who you are. People warm to you, really hone that personality, because you're going to need it when people start buying those services. So yeah, hopefully that would. But yeah, like I say, for me, I knew I wouldn't be straight out of education. I probably wouldn't have been successful. I had to work for somebody first to build my own reputation, to give me that potential to create a business. So really just, you have someone you can really talk that through with.
Fahad, just a quick check. Did that help answer your question, or did you have a follow-up question? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So iPhone X. Okay. As business owners, you've all faced a big challenge which has helped you grow and develop. What did you tell yourself in order to continue with the respective businesses and maintain your discipline? So I guess that is kind of like from the beginning, as I mentioned before, it was like, what was your biggest challenge? But I guess what was your biggest motivator throughout those challenges, I guess. So if two of you want to like potentially answer that, Christine, there you go.
I needed to earn a living. So it doesn't matter what happens. People and events can bring you to your knees. And the thing you have to remember is, and somebody taught me this a while ago, and it's just been really valuable. Facts are neutral. Thoughts are scary. Worry pretends to be necessary. But as always, this will pass. And I just remember that every single day, because every day you wake up, and if you're really lucky, you breathe in, you breathe out, and you open your eyes, and you can see. And you can swing your legs out of bed, and you can stand up. And already you're well ahead of all those people who are not privileged to be able to do any of those things.
Was there anyone else that I wanted to touch on that? That was amazing, by the way. I was just like, I need to write that down myself. But yes, was anyone else? No? Okay, next question is, so from Stephen Anderson was, what does the panel think about crowdfunding for business? Has anyone crowdfunded before or used it as a medium in any of their businesses?
Yeah, I'll go into that one. I think there are different types of crowdfunding. There's the equity crowdfunding, where you're getting people to invest in your business, and then there is product crowdfunding, where people are in effect buying your product upfront before it has been made. There may be a draft product there. I'm not sure I'm convinced that crowdfunding for equity is particularly helpful. Yes, you may get some cash in, but can you find some better shareholders who can support you with moving your business forward? There is definitely a time and a place for crowdfunding, but in the early stages, I would tend to look for people that have got more to add than just their cash in terms of investing in the business. In terms of crowdfunding for product, I think it's a really useful way of managing your cash flow. So if you're thinking of bringing a new product to market, or you're starting a product-based company, it can be a really effective way of getting people to, in effect, fund the working capital as well as the product development. And I would really encourage that if you've got a good platform and a good network to get that up and running.
Yeah, James, would you say that with the latter, when you're crowdfunding for products, that you're actually achieving investment and customers at the same time?
Well, I would be as an owner, yes, but I'm not giving any equity away. And they know exactly the risk that they're going to get, which is they'll get the product or they won't get the product. So I think it's often much more honest to do it that way than crowdfunding small business, where there will be no secondary market in the shares. They won't be able to get out, and the likelihood of getting a return is extremely small.
Okay.
Okay, just
yeah.
Just add on to that. So I think also have a think about what you need funding for. So again, when I went back to having an idea to create a digital marketing agency, I knew I couldn't do it on my own, and I worked out what skills were needed. And rather than try and raise the money to then hire those people, I found 3 other people and we went into business together. So 4 of us started that business. We each had 25% each, but that meant there was no cost and we could win work together. So sometimes just think about, actually, potentially, is it better to find business partners that you could all work together to reduce the need of upfront capital? Yeah, have a think about that as well as you're thinking about your business plan. So that worked really well for us.
A question just came in, I guess, which was looking at there's quite a few. Wow. Okay. Now continue. So yes, I think the first one was from iPhone X. Actually, no, Nisea Bar. How important would you say mentorship is? And so, if one of you could answer or just share your insights of how that mentorship has kind of made a big impact on your life. Christine. Oh, is that Christine? Yeah.
Okay. I have stood on the shoulders of giants, and I don't mean people who are mega famous. My very first mentor was when I was 14, and she was a lady in the Salvation Army who taught me about taking in homeless people. So right the way through to a telecoms mogul a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago now, who terrorized me through his mentorship, but it was just worth it. And I still have mentors now. I've had mentors throughout my entire career. I've been really lucky to have the most amazing mentors. I think it's probably one of the most important factors in where I am today.
Yeah, I would just say it's absolutely essential. If you think you know it all, particularly when you're starting out in business, you are almost certainly wrong. And having someone who can give you a bit of wisdom and a bit of perspective is really, really helpful. And of course, they have great networks too.
Just to touch on that, because I think we do see it in this current climate where mentorship programs there is actually quite dense and quite there's quite a lot of them. What would your advice be? Is there a right mentor, basically? Is there a person that you should seek out rather than just joining any program?
Well, I think you start where you start, and if you outgrow your mentor fairly quickly, don't be frightened to move on politely. Obviously, no need to ghost them, but you may well need different mentors for different parts of your business life and its growth, and of course your personal life. and I know Johnny spoke earlier about that, and it's really important getting that balance right, rather than running yourself into the ground and getting burnout.
Cool. Last two questions. So one is, could you describe your morning or night routine in order to prepare for the day ahead? Like, what is the most, like, do you have somewhat like a special routine or ritual that you rely on to kind of continue like having that level of endurance? Oh, Johnny.
This is something I started when I moved a number of years ago, when I lived in Paris for a couple of years. And I was running the business from home. You know, we weren't big enough to have offices. Well, you know, we could have had offices, but keeping costs as low as possible, it just made sense to run it remotely. And every day as my wife went out the door to work, I would rearrange the furniture in our 11 square meter Parisian apartment so that I had what sort of resembled a workspace for myself. And then I'd write down on a piece of paper how I was going to map out my day, breaking it down into hour and a half of working, half an hour break, hour and a half of working, hour out on the bike, hour and a half of working. I think my wife laughed at me once when she found a note that I'd scheduled half an hour for man about the house, which meant I was sort of doing a couple of errands, but she found that phrase particularly funny. But yeah, laying out, writing it down what you are going to do with your day so that you are held accountable to this piece of paper. Because if you sit down and think you're going to do 8 hours of work, you're not. You're going to faff around for 6 hours and then rush a bit of a job at the end of it. So that's how I get myself in the zone, making sure I have a workspace and holding myself accountable to what I'm going to do that day.
I can completely parallel all of that. It's really having a working environment that is conducive to actual work is really, really important. I subscribe to a couple of edicts. One is a book that's called The One Thing. And the whole premise of the book is, what is the one thing such that by doing it now, everything else will be easier or irrelevant? So before I do that, I make sure that I close my day by saying, today isn't over until tomorrow is planned. And then I plan my day for tomorrow so that I'm prepared. And I always look at what's the one thing that I absolutely have to do tomorrow. That's, so I have 3 things. The one thing that I have to absolutely do tomorrow. What is the one thing that I'm going to do tomorrow that's going to get or keep customers? And then the third thing is there anything that I need to do tomorrow to keep me legal? So I've always got those 3 things. Now, sometimes there's only 2 things because I can safely say there's nothing that I need to do that keeps me legal. But doing that plan for today means that I can sleep sweetly tonight. And that's where all my best ideas come from. Because when I wake up the next morning, I've got at least 2 things, possibly even 3 things that I'm going to do. And I've had some thinking time because my brain has been allowed to rest.
Thank you.
Just very briefly, the only thing I would add to that, and perhaps answer the question more directly, I use my faith and sign off the day and start the day in prayer. But particularly, I think it's important to acknowledge and be thankful for the things that have gone well and for the things that you have learned, because otherwise it can get very dispiriting.
Thank you. Got one final question. It's going to have to be super quick, but it's just like, in terms of what are any potential gaps in the market in which starting a business would be a strong idea, and how do you identify those gaps? Some insider information right now. David.
So you either work in an industry, and because you work in it, you get it and you see the gap and you innovate into it. Or if you're actually coming in wanting to find an opportunity, then you research the sector, you understand what everyone's doing, what is the product, why are they selling products and services, why are people buying, really understand how that system works, and you're looking for the gap no one's yet thought of that you can innovate into. So a few years ago, I was contracted to look at graduate unemployment after university. I understood the system, came up with an idea for a new way to help graduates get work after university. So far, I've had about £1 million of investment just on that idea. So, but it started with, I didn't understand anything about graduate unemployment until I spent 3 months researching it. Through the research came the eureka moment of, what about this? And so far that's had £1 million of investment. So yeah, you're either in it and you can innovate because you get it, or if you want to look for an opportunity, spend 3 months really understanding how it all works before you start to innovate. Is the process that I use.
Yeah, just to add briefly to that, two tips. If the government's handing out money, particularly in the form of grants, that might be an opportunity. I know 1 or 2 people have started businesses successfully that way. And the other thing is that you're often not looking for an opportunity, you're looking at a problem. And newspapers, the news is full of problems. If you've got some answers for some of those, then you can probably start a business.
It's as well as a strange one to ask other people because, yeah, the right gap in the market, it depends on the person that's going to fill it. I've seen many gaps in the market, but they wouldn't be solutions that I could provide. So what I might think of as a gap wouldn't be something that who was asking the question, Maserati, would be able to create a business around. I think I came up with a great business idea when I parked my car in Gatwick once. And it cost me more to park my car in Gatwick for my holiday than it did to rent a car on the other side. And I just thought, well, why can't all these people who are parking cars just rent them to people who are coming on holiday? Wonderful business idea, but I have got absolutely no expertise in the field, and it would be pointless of me to pursue that as a business venture. So you need to find a pain point that people have, but also you've got to be the right person to be creating a business around that.
Thank you. We are just going to round that up and pass it back to Partnerships for Young London, or pass it back to Naomi, who will explain what next steps are. And thank you so much for being able to kind of like come down and listen to this. And I hope your questions were able to be answered. But Naomi, yeah, I'll pass it back up to you.
Thank you so much, David, for hosting that. And wow, Christine, Johnny, James, and David, thank you so much for that invaluable insight, such great one-liners here and there, and just lots of advice. Personally, I think 2 things that stood out for me was the difference between value and service for your customers. That was something really interesting that I hadn't really thought about. And then also it's about who knows you and your reputation preceding you, not so much about who you know. Some key things there, and I'm sure everyone has taken something away with them, so thank you so much again. We did say that we're going to finish at 2 o'clock. If anyone needs to leave now or at 2 on the dot, please feel free to. We have a couple more minutes leeway, so I'll just talk about some other things that I needed to mention. So yes, after this, I will send an email with the worksheet that the entrepreneurs have kindly put together. And that worksheet will help you to develop your ideas in time for our next meeting, which is on the 12th, so a week today. And it's imperative that I get that in by this Friday, the 8th of May, so that we have all of them collated together, and then you'll get the opportunity to pitch your ideas. And actually, to answer, I was at Naseba and I think Proud Autistic 12, user Proud Autistic 12, you were talking about mentorship, and again, kindly, the entrepreneurs have said that they will be willing to offer mentorship to some of the young people with, that have come up with ideas and budding entrepreneurs. So that's something that we're looking to shape right now. But as of right now, we have the meeting next week, which you'll be able to pitch your ideas and get some feedback on. So that's going to be great, and again, invaluable. I'll reiterate everything again in the email. So everyone that's signed up, you will receive that email with the worksheet and information about next week. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. And if you wanted to maybe send the questions on to the entrepreneurs today, send them to me and I'll pass them on accordingly. I think we are good to go. I think that's everything. But yeah, just a round of applause to everyone. Thank you so much. It's been great. I've personally been so inspired, and I've learned a lot. So thank you everyone else for joining us, and we will see you next week. I can see some hand clap emojis. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting. Loads of claps. Everyone's very appreciative. Good. Okay, you're welcome. Everyone, take care. Again, if you need to email me and you have any questions, please feel free. It's Naomi, Naomi, Emmanuel, EMMANUEL, at cityoflondon.gov.uk. But I will be sending you an email so you can respond to that and it will come to me. Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.